All right, so we're drawing positive slope in this first box. Okay, that means that we are going uphill as we read from left to right. Okay, we usually read from left to right, so we're going uphill. Okay. Now I'd like you to draw a negative slope in the second box. And label that negative slope. Negative slopes go downhill as we read from left to right. Okay, writing these down. Okay. Our third box, we want to have a horizontal line. So draw a horizontal line like the horizon for our third box. Okay. So this is a special case. We have to think about what this guy stands for. Okay. If it's a horizontal line, does it have a lot of rise or no rise? No rise. Okay. So if it's 0 rise over lots of run, because the x is changing, the y is not, is that the what is the slope of this guy? 0. 0 over some number is 0. And this kind of a line, when we look at its equation, will have the same number for y. We didn't put our axes here, so we don't know what our equation would be, but it's going to be y equals some number. Okay? Y equals 5, y equals -6. Okay? Last one I want you to draw is a vertical line. So draw a vertical line somewhere. Adam, draw a vertical line in your fourth box. Okay? And in this vertical line, we have lots of rise and 0 run. So what is its slope? It's like a cliff, right? So it's straight down. So what do we call that? You remember from last year? The vertical line. What's its slope? It's actually undefined. Because we can't divide by 0. That's one of the things we can't do in mathematics, is divide by 0. Okay? So when we see this, we know that our y is changing, but our x is not. So this is x equals some number, is what the equation of that line looks like. All right. So the next thing we want to do then is to draw a picture of Mr. Slope. Okay? Mr. Slope is going to be a weird-looking dude. Okay? He's not going to be very, very pleasant, but he can help you remember what's positive, what's negative, what's 0, and what is undefined. Okay, so when you're drawing Mr. Slope, draw a big circle for his head. Okay, and then we're going to give him some eyebrows. His left eyebrow is going uphill, his right eyebrow is going downhill. Okay, so his left eyebrow, gentlemen, draw Mr. Slope for me, please. Okay. And his left eyebrow is going to have a plus sign underneath of it for his eye, and his right eyebrow is going to have a minus underneath of it, because this is a positive slope, and that's a negative slope. Okay? He's kind of winking at you. Okay? I'm saying he's going to be silly, and sometimes silly things are what help you remember. Okay? Not really. Okay? His nose is the vertical line. Very good. Now, if his nose is the vertical line, what's the vertical line slope? What is a vertical line slope? Undefined. So we're going to give him a mustache, and that mustache is going to be a U. Okay? So there's this little mustache. Okay? Now, the only but it can help you it can help you remember it because it's so silly. Draw them a couple times, doodle, okay? So the last line that we haven't done is our horizontal line, right? All right, so let's draw our horizontal line. That's going to be his mouth, okay? Now, when a horizontal line has what kind of slope? 0. So those are going to be his dimples. Okay? There's Mr. Slope. Okay? So if you need to know which is which, thank you. Positive slope is his left eye, so it's got a plus sign. Negative slope is his right eye. Nose is vertical, so it's undefined. And then the dimples are the zeros. Okay? Okay. Here we go. So the next thing we need to talk about is the slope y-intercept form. Okay, so if you look at the outside of your foldable, slope y-intercept is going to be right beneath that. So we're back to the right-hand side in the middle two boxes. Okay, so y equals mx plus b is the equation. Adam, fill this out so you don't have to stay for detention and do it tonight. Okay, so we're right here. Y equals mx plus b is an equation of a line with a slope m and a point 0, b. Okay. The b is considered your y-intercept. When x is 0, what's y? That's my y-intercept. Okay. So we think of that as being the beginning point when we're graphing an equation of a line. We let x be 0 when we find out where that's at on the y-axis, and then we use our rise and run from our slope. Okay? This is the most commonly used form. However, there's also standard form. Standard form is a number times x plus another number times y equals c. And that's an equation that we can't quickly identify the slope and the y-intercept of. So we have to solve this type of an equation for y. Okay? So put a little star beside that in your notes. Okay? If it's in standard form, solve for y. Get the y all by itself. Okay, we'll see that a couple of times today. So this next example is asking us to find the equation of a line with a slope of -3 that passes through -1, 5. And we're going to use the slope y-intercept form. So the first step is always to write y equals mx plus b. And we have to identify our slope. That's our m. M for slope, not for midpoint. Okay? So that's our movement. That 3 is going into the m spot. And we need to plug our y and our x in for the y and the x. So 5 equals -3 times -1 plus some b. We don't know what b's value is. But we substitute the y in for the y, the x in for the x, and the m in for the m. Okay. Now, what is -3 times -1? Multiply +3. So when b or 3 is needing to come to the other side, right? So b became 2, right? one was a step ahead of me. So now we just rewrite that equation. Y equals -3 times x plus 2. Does everyone remember this from last year? No? Okay. This was the topic that you covered in Algebra 1. Okay, everybody got it written down? Josh, right? Okay. Questions on this slide? We're okay? All right. Anybody ready for the next one? Okay, here we go. So now we're into the parallel lines part. Okay, so if you look at your foldable, we have the parallel lines, and this is the middle right side. Okay, start with the right hand, because it will make sense. Okay, in a coordinate plane, if we have two non-vertical lines, they are parallel if and only if, biconditional statement here, they have the same slope. So the most important words to write down if you are abbreviating, parallel, same slope. Okay, it's common when you're taking notes to summarize and simplify and not write things word for word. Okay, parallel, same slope. That means that when I have this blue line, its slope has to be the same as the red line slope because they're parallel. All right, so moving to the right, if we're asked to find the equation of the line that is parallel to y equals -1/2 x plus 2 and passes through the point 8, -3, we want to find the equation. Okay, so first of all, parallel to is important. Okay, what form of an equation is this one? Y equals something x plus something, right? So y is all by itself. It's in, oh, not standard. It is in the, Eric, what form is this in? Okay. When you get the y all by itself, what's it called? The slope y-intercept, right? Okay. So the y is by itself. That means that the number in front of the x is the slope, and the number in all by itself is our y-intercept. Okay. So let's think about how we would graph this if we were asked to do so. We would start when x is 0 at positive 2. X is 0, y is a positive 2. And this slope is -1/2. What does that mean? So we need to go down 1 and right 2 because we want it to go downhill as we read from left to right. Down 1, right 2. So this is my blue line, my original line. Okay. I want my new line to be parallel to this one. Okay. If it's parallel, then it means it has the, if it's parallel, it has the same slope, right? So if my original slope is -1/2, my new line is going to have a slope of -1/2 because parallel means same slope. Okay. So we'll plot 8, -3. And he's down here. And I'm out of space, so I can't go down 1 and over 2 very well, but could I go up 1 and left 2? Will that still get me a negative slope? Yeah, I could go up 1 and left 2, right? So this is my new line. I need to find out what its b is. So let's plug it into y equals mx plus b. Okay. So my y is -3. My m is -1/2. My x is the 8, and I need to find out what b is. So -3 equals -4 plus b. So b has to be 1. That means I would go up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2. Guess what? There's my b. And those two lines are parallel. They have the same slope. So we had to find the slope of this line and use it and this point in the slope y-intercept form. Questions on this one? Feeling okay? No? Okay? All right, here we go. Next one. All right, so now we're going to talk about point slope. So if you look at your foldable, point slope is the one on the bottom left. Okay? And this is another form that you can use. You don't have to use it. I like it better. There's less writing. But you can always use y equals mx plus b. So if you don't want to clutter your brain with another thing to memorize, you don't have to use point slope form. Okay? So let me show you why it's good. Y equals m times the quantity x minus its coordinate plus y1, y's coordinate, is what we can call an equation of a line with a slope of m going through the point x1, y1. Okay? This is one way of writing it. It has less steps to it. Another way to write it is y minus its coordinate is equal to the slope times x minus its coordinate. They look almost identical. It's just that this y1 went over here, and now it's positive. Okay? So if we ask you to find the equation of a line through -2, 7 with a slope of -5, we can still use y equals mx plus b. But let's try the point slope to see how it works. Okay? So point slope says y equals the slope times x minus its coordinate plus the y coordinate. Okay? So y equals, what's our slope? -5 times x minus, what's its coordinate? -2. So when you do a negative, minus a negative, what do we have to do? Plus a positive, right? Okay. Plus, what's the y coordinate? 7. So the only one we have to change the sign of is the x using this format. Okay. When it's in the parentheses with x, we change its sign. Okay. Now look at how easy this is then. We'll take that -5 and distribute it. So -5x minus 10 plus 7 is going to get us y equals -5x minus 3. Would you like to see it using the slope y-intercept form? No? You guys are okay with this one? Okay. All right. To save time, we'll keep going. Anybody have a question on this one? Feeling good? Okay. So perpendicular lines. So you told me that perpendicular lines earlier are lines that have slopes that are what kind of relationship? If I told you the slope was going to be 2/5 and we want a perpendicular to that line, what would the new slope be? 2/5 if it's parallel. -5/2. Okay, our book's definition is that two non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if, biconditional here again, the product of their slopes is a -1. I don't like that definition. Well, it's a great definition, but I don't think it's very helpful. Because if I told you something has 1/3 for its slope, and its perpendicular is going to have multiply by it and get you -1, that doesn't really help you get the other slope. So you can decide if you want to write this definition down or if you want to say that their slopes are negative reciprocals. Or even if you want to say flip the fraction and change the sign. Okay? So that's how I remember it. Flip it and change the sign. Flip and negate. Find the opposite. All right, so find an equation of a line that passes through 1, 2, and is perpendicular to 3x minus 2y equals 6. This one's a toughie. About as hard as they get. We want it to pass through this point, so we're going to use this point in point slope or our slope y-intercept, right? But can we look at this equation and decide what the slope is? Not quite, right? You can see what it's going to be because some of you have great mental math skills and can manipulate that in your brain, right? Okay, but what do we have to do to this equation in order to get it into a form that we can see the slope? Get the y by itself. Awesome. So we need to get this guy by itself. So we'll subtract 3x, so negative 2y will be equal to a negative 3x plus 6, and divide by negative 2. That means we divide every single term by negative 2. So y is a negative over negative is positive, so we'll have 3 halves x minus 3, right? So now we know its slope. Red line has a slope of 3 halves. The number in front of your x is your slope. Okay, but our new line is supposed to be perpendicular. So what's the new slope going to be? Negative 2 over 3. Very good. Okay, so our new slope Okay, Eric, let's wake up, please, sir. Okay. New slope is negative 2/3. I need to start calling on people so that we don't know if we're going to be asked to answer a question. Okay. All right, so our new slope is negative 2/3. So do you want to see slope y-intercept or point slope? Should we do point slope again since we haven't done that many times? Okay. So our point slope says write down y equals, and then we write down our slope, negative 2/3 times x, and then we have to take away its coordinate. So minus 1, that's the only one we change the sign of, and then we say plus the y coordinate. If it was already negative, it would stay negative, but because it was positive, it stays positive. We don't change its sign. The x is the only one that we switch the sign of. Okay? So we distribute. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2/3 plus that 2. And it's okay to call this 2 2/3 or 2.6 repeating or 8/3, right? All of those are okay. It's just that we always write our slope in fraction form. But the y-intercept can be in any of those. Mixed number, improper fraction, decimal, I don't care. But slope's always a fraction. Okay? Thumbs up if you're feeling okay about these. Okay, anybody have questions? All right, so let me pause this for just a moment. I'm going to pass something out. I should have done this just a moment ago. Okay, so we're supposed to find the slope of a line passing through negative 11, 4 and negative 7, negative 6. So this is just like the problem that we did in our very first block of our slope foldable. Okay, so if you need it as a pattern, you can look at it. But when we have 2 points given, and we want to find the slope of a line that passes through those 2 points, we need to find our rise over our run. How does our y change over our x change in x? Okay, So change in y, the y is the rise. So if it helps you to write x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, so you don't get mixed up, do that until you don't need to anymore. Okay? And then I would practice writing m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay? And then we have to do what's on top and on the bottom next. So we'll take our second y minus our first y. That was a positive 4, so negative 6 minus 4 over our second x minus our negative 11, our first x. Okay? When we have two negative numbers, what do? Keep and change the sign, or keep add them and give them the negative sign, right? Keep the sign and add. So we'll have a negative 10, but a minus minus means plus positive. So a positive 11 with a negative 7, we have to subtract, right? And give the sign of the larger. So 11 minus 7 is 4. Now, we're not quite finished because we want it in fraction form, but we can reduce. So when we reduce this, we get and we're done. Okay? Easy peasy, right? But practice it. Make sure you do it correctly. Practice it correctly. Okay? Does anybody need to see another one? We can do number 2 together. Yes? Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2 said we have negative 10, negative 2, and we have the point 14.3. Okay, so decide which is your first x and y. Okay, so, excuse me, second y minus first y. 3 minus a negative 2. Second x minus first x. 14 minus a negative 10. Okay, so we'll have a positive 24 on the bottom and a positive 5, right? Can we reduce it? Nope, we're done. Okay, yes, sir. You could. You could. It depends on how your brain works. Absolutely. Okay. Now another question. I thought you might be asking this one. What if I chose to let this be my x2, y2, x1, y1, right? I can do the same thing. I can reverse the order. I can say what is negative 2 minus 3, and I can say what is negative 10 minus 14. Negative 2 minus 3 gets me a negative 5. Negative 10 minus 14 gets me a negative 24. But negative over negative is still positive. So I still get the same answer both ways. Okay? It depends on which way you go. As long as you're consistent. If you start with 1, you have to go back to that same ordered pair for the x value. Okay? All right, next example. So the next box that you have is number 8. Okay? Let's look at number 7 though. So I think 7 is really easy. If we ask you to find the slope of number 7, y equals 2x or 2/5 x plus 4. Does anybody know what the slope is? 2/5, right? Why could you say 2/5 like that? Yep, it's the number in front of the x, and that's the slope. Okay, so that one's easy. You can immediately look at it and say 2/5, right? And the reason is because it's already in slope-intercept form. But unfortunately, yeah, same as number 10. Oh, not quite. 10's tricky. Yeah, the y has the 4/3 in front of it, not the x. So you're going to have to work that one out. Okay? Now, but let's look at this one, number 8. What form is this one? You may not remember the form, but it's not slope-intercept, right? So this is that standard form that I said put a little star beside. Okay? So if it's got the star beside it, if it's standard, what do we have to do to get it in slope-intercept form? Yep, solve for y. Okay, so we want to get this guy all by itself. So we have to take the 2x to the other side and divide by 3. So divide by 3, that means divide every single term by 3. Now we can look at it and decide what the slope is. What's the slope? Negative 2/3. M for movement, M for slope, not for midpoint. M is always a fraction. Okay? Number 13. We're going to do that one that's got a box around it. That's our next example. Everybody okay with this one? Not yet. Give you a little more time to write. I went quickly. All right, so 13, here we go. Now we want to write an equation of a line passing through 4, -3 with a slope of -2. So you can use either form. It doesn't tell you slope y-intercept or point slope. So you decide which one you like better and you can use that and be consistent. So which do you want to use, point slope or slope y-intercept? Point slope I think is faster. Okay? So point slope says y equals, yep, this is number 13, m times x minus its coordinate plus y's coordinate. And write these down each time so that you memorize them. The more you write things, the more you're likely to remember it later. Okay? So we're going to put in our x and our y and our m. So y equals our slope times x minus its coordinate. It was positive. It's going to be negative in the parentheses. The y doesn't change its sign, so it's a -3. The only one we change the sign of is the x in this form. Okay? Now we simplify. When we see a 2 in front of parentheses, we multiply, distribute, right? -2x, -2 times a -4, and 8 minus 3 is 5. Did anybody want to see that worked in slope y-intercept form? Okay, let's try it the other way. We'll get the same answer, so it doesn't matter as long as we're consistent. Okay, so we know we want y equals mx plus b. That's probably the one you have memorized already, so it's easier to use. We're going to put the y in for the y, the m in for the m, the x in for the x, and figure out what b is. Okay? So we get a -8 here. If a -3 equals -8 plus b, then we bring the 8 to the other side, and we get 5 equals b. And now we rewrite. So y equals -2, our slope, times x plus 5. So we get the same answer either way, it's just that there's a little bit more writing with this one. Make sense? Okay? All right, everybody feeling good about these problems? All right. So number 16 is our last one, and this is the toughest thing you'll encounter. Okay? This is the toughest. Okay? We want an equation of a line that passes through 2 points this time. Okay? So if we want an equation of a line that's passing through 2 points, what's a very crucial piece of information that we need? Where would we start? Got to find the slope first. Okay? So step 1, find the slope. Okay, so how do we find slope? Good. Okay, midpoint formula we add, distance and slope formula we subtract. So we want to take our y2 minus our y1, 4 minus 5, x2 minus our x1, -2 minus a -3. Be so careful with your signs. Focus on those, pay attention. Okay? But minus minus means plus positive. So what is 4 and a -5? And then a -2 and a +3? Okay? And if they write that as -1 for the slope, is that okay? It might confuse us for a moment, right? But anything can be divided by 1, right? So 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. 17 is the same thing as 17 over 1. So they sometimes leave that out, that 1 there. Okay, that 1 in the denominator. All right, good. We've got our slope. Okay, so we use the 2 points to find our slope. Now we get to pick. It doesn't matter which point you pick. Okay, the faster one, I'm not sure which one's faster. Both have a negative and a positive, right? So we can pick either point. -3, 5. Okay, so are we using point slope form or slope y-intercept form? Okay, Josh likes point slope. Anybody want the slope y-intercept? I think we're okay using point slope. So y equals our slope times x minus its coordinate plus the y coordinate. Write it down every time until you don't have to think about it anymore. It's so natural. Okay, so y equals, what's our slope? -1, x minus, what's x's coordinate? -3, so minus a -3 plus the y coordinate. The y was already positive, it stays positive. We don't change the sign of it, we change the sign of the x. Okay, so minus a negative becomes plus a positive. Distribute. And then combine your like terms. There is a line that goes through those 2 points. Okay? Everybody good with those? Okay, that's kind of a culmination problem. It asks you to find the slope, and then you've got to use your slope or point slope, slope y-intercept or point slope form. Okay? Your assignment's to finish the rest. Okay? And then tomorrow's a work day, so no more notes tomorrow. Make sure you memorize your foldable though. Okay? Do these problems for accuracy. Okay? No, there'll be another assignment. So yep, try to have this one done so you've practiced it. We'll check your work to see, make sure that you were doing it correctly and fix any problems, any mistakes that you were making. And then we'll have a book assignment tomorrow. Okay?